It's a sad day for Celina. Very, very sad day. The four of you have divided us as a town, and you've ruined so much of the camaraderie and so much that we have loved in this town, that we all have volunteered and volunteered and volunteered and given our hearts and so much love in this town for. All of us give. And you guys have now divided us.
Launch sequence activated.
Welcome to CelinaRadio.com. I'm your host, Ron Lyons, and if you think that Celina, Texas is just a quiet little sleepy town with absolutely nothing going on, then you better buckle up, because Celina Radio is about to launch.
3, 2, 1.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of CelinaRadio.com. Today, you may notice that we're doing this in a completely different format. That's right, we're doing video instead of just audio for this podcast. And the reason we're doing that is because today you need to actually visualize what's going on. And what we're going to cover today is a city council meeting that happened on June the 14th, 2022. A night that is now commonly known as the Tuesday Night Massacre. And the reason it's known as the Tuesday Night Massacre is because something very unique and bad happened that night. Something that hasn't happened, as far as I can tell, anywhere in this country in history. And there's a reason for that, and that's because it's a horrible thing to do. It's bad leadership, it's bad decision making, and we actually ended up turning out okay. And I say okay, not great, not good. This wasn't done for the betterment of the city. This was actually done for reasons, in my opinion, that are pretty nefarious. Now, I'm going to let you decide for yourself. You can decide what you think about the Tuesday Night Massacre. So before we get into that, I am actually going to show you excerpts and scenes and footage from that actual city council meeting. But let me explain something first. We have 6 city council members and a mayor. And typically what happens is when things get voted upon, if the majority agrees, then whatever that item is approved. And then you move on to the next thing. In the case that there's a tie, 3 versus 3 of the city council members, then the mayor is the deciding vote. Now there's exceptions to that. But generally speaking, that's how that works. On this particular night, the June 14th, 2022 meeting, this was the very first night that Tony Griggs and Philip Ferguson swore in and started serving as newly elected city council members. That means that the controlling portion, the majority of the council now resides with 4 people. Wendie Wigginton, Jay Pierce, newly elected Philip Ferguson, and newly elected Tony Griggs. That means that with 4 people, generally speaking, if they're all in agreement, if they're all allies on city council, they can do whatever they want to do. That's why coming into this June the 14th, 2022 meeting, they knew ahead of time. In fact, they had planned, and as far as I'm concerned, colluded to do this. And why do I say they colluded to do this? And what did they do? Well, that's a great question. They terminated every single member of every single board and commission. Citizen, volunteer, commission, and board members were wiped out. They were terminated. The Board of Adjustments wasn't touched because the city attorney said that that would be a problem. But every other board and commission was wiped clean because of this new majority on the city council. And we're going to talk about that just a little bit. And we're going to see what you think about that. Because it just so happens that one of those city council people, Wendie Wigginton, is actually up for re-election right now. And in my opinion, this shows extremely poor judgment. It's very, very bad leadership. In fact, I even told her that I considered it horrid leadership. And it is. It's very, very, very bad. It was a super bad decision for the city. And even her own terms, her own words on a video that she released. She said, could this have turned out bad? Of course it could have.
Now, could it have not worked out? Certainly. But that is life.
So anyways, it's just a bad deal all the way around. It looks bad. It looks super bad for Philip and Tony to come in on their very, very first night, their very, very first city council meeting. And you can even see on the video from the city council meeting that night, they're actually changing out the name tags for Philip and Tony during this meeting. Their seats are not even really warm yet, and they come in and do something completely unprecedented. Something, like I said, that I've not been able to find has ever happened in history anywhere, not locally, I mean in the entire country. And you have to ask yourself, why has this never been done before? Not because it's innovative and special and unique and great, but because it's dangerous. It's gambling with our city. It's gambling with the direction and the focus and the vision for the city. It's not good. It's not good at all. So let's kind of discuss that night and let's just talk about what happened. So it all started like a normal city council meeting. And in case you've not seen one of these before, they do a prayer, they do the Pledge of Allegiance, they do the Texas State Pledge, and then they moved on. And there's a lot of city business in that particular meeting that happened in between some of these bigger events. And we're not going to talk about all of those things. They're standard city business. But one of the first things that happened was Tony and Philip got sworn in. They raised their hands, took their oath, and swore in as brand new city council members. First night. Never been there before. Never served on city council yet. And here's what's ironic about all of this. This was a night when Wendie Wigginton had to leave. I believe she was going to go on a trip or something like that. So she wasn't actually even there for this vote. Now, she says in the subsequent meeting, I believe it was the July the 12th meeting, she comes back and refers to what her position was on all of this stuff. So in a subsequent meeting, she talks about her position on everything during this meeting. It's no mystery as to who was behind all of this stuff. I'm not sitting here making things up. It's fact. I literally sat down with Wendie herself and we discussed these things. I've sat down with Philip. We've discussed these things. So it's not like somebody saying, oh, this is what happened, but it really didn't. They're very clear about this. 4 members of our city council, 2 who had already been serving, Wendie Wigginton, Jay Pierce, got together prior to the swearing in, but after winning the election with Tony Griggs and Philip Ferguson, and planned this event, planned this Tuesday Night Massacre, and allowed this, not allowed it, created it, made it happen, because they had the majority. So let's get back to the meeting. Let's talk about how things went. So after the swearing in of Tony and Philip, it goes on and eventually gets to the point to where somebody's got to decide on a couple of different things. So let's just go through this. 5 p.m. prayer and pledges. Next was swearing in of Philip Ferguson and Tony Griggs. 5:39, they discuss a timeline in the event that the item that's coming up later, which is the actual voting on whether or not they're going to eliminate every member from every board and commission with the exception of the Board of Adjustments. And let me rephrase, let me say that again. Let me reiterate. Every board and every commission with the exception of Board of Adjustments. Again, because the city attorney said that would be a bad idea. Otherwise, I think they probably would have wiped them out too. So at around 7:23, That's when Wendie Wigginton leaves, somewhere around 7:23. So you're gathering her items, and then she's gone. At 7:33 p.m., here's something that's very, very interesting. We have a brand new mayor pro tem and deputy mayor pro tem elected. I'm going to give it, about 5 seconds for you to decide who the deputy mayor pro tem and mayor pro tem were. If you guessed something that rhymes with Wendie Wigginton and Jay Pierce, you'd be right. Again, they've got a new majority. You've got Andy Hopkins and Mindy Keeney, both who have served on council for a long time. Lots of experience. But they're in the minority now. So neither of them get it. Both Tony Griggs and Philip Ferguson agree with Jay Pierce. And guess what? We have a new mayor pro tem and deputy mayor pro tem in Jay Pierce and Wendie Wigginton.
Action item C, consider an act to elect a mayor pro tem and deputy mayor pro tem. We're going to have some discussion on this. I think, Mindy did a great job this year, stepped in when we needed to. You're local. I think, Andy, you would be good at deputy mayor pro tem or mayor pro tem with your experience. And so I think you two guys, Philip and Tony, still just getting on here, getting your feet wet a little bit, see what happens. Jay, I still think Andy, I don't think you've ever been in that role, have you? In all these years you've been on there. So that's my 2 cents. I think those two guys are very qualified. They're here local all the time. And to me, Mindy's done a great job stepping in as mayor pro tem, and leave it open for discussion. Got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor, raise your right hand. All right. All opposed? All right. Well, that's who we want for mayor pro tem.
Have the motion.
Okay.
I would move to motion for council member Jay Pierce to serve as mayor pro tem, and council member Wendie Wigginton to serve as deputy mayor pro tem.
Okay. Now, one thing I want to just clarify is I think Jay still doesn't understand his role as a councilman. And so that's your decision. It's our council decision. And so that's fine. But Jay, I just want you to understand, going to staff, asking for things is still out of line of a councilman. And I just want you to know that moving forward. Let's work together and do things, but going and asking for things and telling staff, don't go tell them I need this, doesn't put staff in a good light.
I've never asked staff to do anything specific. I've asked questions, but I've never asked them to do anything specific.
Okay. So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Right. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed? All right, motion carries.
I'd like to say something if I might.
Right ahead.
I've never once took this job for a ego and I don't really care about the title, to be honest with you. What I saw happen just now was flying in the face of convention. Not that that's always wrong, but experience for what I view to be notoriety. And I am disappointed, though I should not say I'm surprised. I am definitely disappointed in what I saw here, not because I'm not named one of these things or Mindy's not named one of these things, but because of how it happened. The new mayor, deputy mayor pro tem, has been on council for exactly 1 year.
And technically was not voted. He ran unopposed.
So I have been in conversations with quote unquote campaign managers that say that there are no accidents. The last time that this conversation came up, I met with Councilman Pierce briefly and asked what was that action about, and he said it's just what I felt was right. Well, his campaign manager told me later that it was calculated, 100% calculated, just as this was. There was a plan coming in here today, which included 4 council people. Well, technically, I guess they got skirted by the law because 2 of them weren't council people yet. But there were 4 people in on this, and that's against the spirit of the law, if nothing else. Again, this has never meant anything to me. I could have pushed to been mayor pro tem or deputy mayor pro tem several years ago with the experience that I have. It doesn't matter to me. But I don't like the way I saw this happen, and it's 2 years in a row. And to me, it smacks of ego.
But that's only the start of the fun. It gets even better. As we moved along, like I said, item D, 7:38, it's going to be considered a vacancy. 7:40 p.m., the mayor makes a statement that this would get rid of all positions. It is. It's wiping the boards clean. It's taking them out. 7:41, mayor asked who, because apparently 2 city council members went to the city manager and started orchestrating all of this stuff. Obviously, this had to be put on the agenda prior to this meeting. Philip Ferguson couldn't have done it because he wasn't on council yet. Tony Griggs couldn't have done it because he wasn't on council yet. Mindy Keeney clearly thinks this is a terrible idea. She wouldn't have done it. Andy Hopkins thinks it's a terrible idea. He wouldn't have done it. So that leaves 2 options: Wendie Wigginton and Jay Pierce. And so the mayor specifically asked Jay. Now remember, Wendie's gone at this point. So the mayor specifically asked Jay Pierce, were you one of the 2 who went to the city manager and basically orchestrated all this, get this put on the agenda, etc.? And Jay says, yes, I was one of the 2. I asked Wendie directly when I met with her one day at a Starbucks. I told her this is collusion and it has terrible optics. It looks so bad to do something like this. To essentially pull 2 brand new elected city council members aside and say, hey guys, let's do this. The 4 of us agree. We go in on night 1 and we make a statement. We let them know who the new sheriffs are in town. Now, obviously, I'm saying that. But they had to have agreement prior to coming in to do this. Now, it's been all dressed up now, and it's tried to be, made so much prettier looking. In fact, Wendie has really tried to soften this up by saying that both Tony and Philip were contacted so many times during their campaigns, and this was such a hot topic that they felt like they had to do something about it on night 1.
Fast forward to the campaigns between 2021 and 2022, and Philip, Tony, and even Jay are told story after story of people who had applied for these roles year after year after year and never been appointed, and never even received a call. So in 2022, after hearing it on the campaign trail now for months.
But the irony of that is, if you go back and look at all of their social media, if you look at all of the stuff available on the internet, it wasn't a hot topic at all. It was not a hot topic. And if it was, they certainly didn't come out there and say, hey, look, guys, here's what we're going to do. You elect us. We're going to go in on night 1. We're going to flip all the boards. We're going to terminate everybody because we know this is a big deal to you. It never happened. It wasn't a hot topic on the campaign trail. There were a lot of things that were discussed on the campaign trail, a lot of things that were a big deal. Apparently, this was not one of them. Not when you go back and look at all the social media, listen to the recordings. Philip Ferguson did a ton of recordings. He talked about a lot of things. Never did he make it like a big deal that, hey, I listen, I'm hearing you citizens, you want all these boards and commissions flipped, so we're going to go in and do this on night 1. That didn't happen. So we move on, and Andy Hopkins takes a stand against this, very much so. So does Mindy Keeney. The mayor says that he thinks this is a terrible idea. And clearly it is. Andy says that it's ludicrous and retaliatory, and absolutely not for the benefit of the citizens. Retaliatory in what way? Retaliatory in the sense that we had just come out of an election. Retaliatory related to that? Possibly. Very possible. Andy says that there's going to be a lot of extra work for staff to get all of the new appointees. So if you wipe off all the boards and commissions and you make everybody reapply if they want to come back onto one of their board or commission positions and open it up to the general public, anyone can come in, anybody can apply for these, and you have to go through this process. Once people get appointed to one of these positions, there's a learning curve. They've got to get in there and learn. If let's just say planning and zoning, you've got to get in there and learn all this stuff. And it takes some time to learn that. So that means that in some ways, the city suffers, this community suffers because planning and zoning has brand new members on it potentially that do not know what they're doing yet. As a matter of fact, Brian Pouchet gets up at 7:46. Brian Pouchet, if you don't know him, he actually had been serving as planning and zoning member. Now, the vote hadn't happened yet to terminate all these positions, so he's speaking as an existing member, and he says that it took him several years to get up to speed to where he really felt like he was effective as a planning and zoning member. He definitely spoke out against this, saying that it was disgusting and unfortunate that this was going to happen.
Please come on up, state your name.
My name is Brian Pouchet. I live at 3406 North Preston Lakes Drive here in Celina. I've been a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission now for a couple of years, and I will say I've got a lot of experience dealing with a number of different municipalities across the FW. I've got some experience before being on the commission with planning and zoning, and I feel like I'm just getting to understand planning and zoning. So I think it's a shame what's taking place here. I really think it's a disservice to the city. I think you wiping these boards, you set our city back years, literally years, and ultimately cost our city millions of dollars. And I think what we've witnessed here it's disgusting, and it's really, really unfortunate. I think that's really all I've got to say. That's it.
Thank you.
You bet.
And how did we know this was going to happen? Because you've got a new majority on the city council. You have 4 people who want it to happen and only 2 who don't. And the mayor who doesn't have a vote in it. That's how we knew it was going to happen. The mayor says that all other cities out there right now, that he communicates with all these other cities, and they love what we're doing. And largely what we're doing right now is we're growing into the fastest growing city in Texas. And that has happened because of the fact that we've got great people serving in many, many different capacities, including on these boards and commissions. So we're not failing. Other cities aren't seeing us saying, oh man, you guys are just really falling apart. I will say this, after this vote happened and after we wiped out all the boards and commissions, I talked to a lot of people that I know that serve in Dallas, in Frisco, in different cities, Plano, and asked them what they thought about what we did. And they said we look like a bunch of jokers, that we look like we don't know what we're doing. There were a lot of comments, but they were all similar. There was not one person that I spoke to that serves in city government, any other city, that sat there and said, you know what? I think what you guys are doing is awesome. That was amazing. What a great thing. You just terminated every member of every board and commission in one night. Oh, and the first night that 2 of the people who voted on it had just been sworn in. Nobody said that. Everybody thought it was a terrible idea. Everybody saw that as potentially creating so many problems for this city. Now, I'll get more into that in just a second. I'll tell you kind of my personal take on this and why this is such a big deal to me. 749, Leah Bain. If you don't know her, Leah Bain is a very, very passionate person. There's a lot of people in this city who look up to her, who respect her, and who know that she's got what it takes to stand up and to be their voice. And she's not on city council, but she brings something during this meeting that needed to be said. And I know a lot of people said, Leah, here's how we feel. Will you take this up there and will you say this for us? Will you be our voice and take this to the city council? Because let's be honest, most people don't want to get up in front of the city council and speak. So Leah gets up there and she does probably one of the most heartfelt few minutes I've ever seen in front of a city council. She addresses the fact that the 4 people, the 2 newly elected city council members, plus Wendie Wigginton, plus Jay Pierce, had basically just ripped our community apart. And I agree with that completely. It's exactly what they did.
My name is Leah Bain. I live at 207 Palomino Lane, Celina, Texas. Thank you, Mayor, Celina City Council, for letting me speak, because I'm sure I speak for a lot of people here in Celina that have asked me to speak. So, to the newest city council members, this is directed at you. Your lack of knowledge is going to destroy our town, just like Biden has ruined America. You're going to cost the taxpayers an enormous amount of money and lawsuits and fixing the mistakes that your lack of knowledge will inevitably screw up. Jay and Wendie, which I'm so sorry that Wendie is missing this lovely part. Her timing was impeccable. Remember everything that you've learned this past year. And be sure to give credit when credit is due, because that is what is always missing. Mindy Caney, Sean Terry, Andy Hopkins, Jason Lahmer, Chad Anderson, Justin Steiner. They have taught you so much. They've saved you numerous times and educated you on so many things that you had no clue about. And I don't know how many times that they never got credit for it. But I saw so many times on Facebook that Wendie Wigginton and Jay Pierce and so many other people got credit for it. But none of them did. And it's a shame. So, take a look at your predecessors on city council and strive to be more like them. As you now pick your new board members, since you have chosen to wipe them completely clean and not understand that ones like my husband, Ben Hangardner, Brian Poche, Eric Becker, and so many other people on so many other boards that do have the experience, that have no reason to be wiped off of, that for some reason you think that they should. You think that your people are the ones, and you have for so many years thought Sean Terry and his people are the ones that should be put on, that shouldn't be put on these boards, and it's all of his people. And it's very hypocritical that you've talked about only Sean Terry, and there are many people that they have kept on boards because it was the right thing to do. And I'm not going to call those people out, it's fine, but it's been even. You guys just didn't want to admit that because it was the right thing to do. But wiping these boards clean is not. You guys need to acknowledge the fact that the people that are on them now have the right experience. So, sadly, the majority of us predicted what all of you did tonight. All of us predicted this was going to happen. This is not a surprise to any of us that you guys were going to do this. What did surprise us is that you were going to do this minutes after you were sworn in. Minutes. None of us thought you would do it your first night on council. This is what's shocking. This is what's sad. We thought you would at least wait one meeting before you did this. At least one meeting. Get to know your place on your seat. Come on. Let it get warm before you do this. That's what's sad. So, as the new regime to build back a better Celina, now that you've made your quorum, you have personal vendettas. We know this. It's obvious. You've admitted this to so many people. You've strived for transparency. Didn't happen. So it's a sad day for Celina. Very, very sad day. The four of you have divided us as a town, and you've ruined so much of the camaraderie and so much that we have loved in this town, that we all have volunteered and volunteered and volunteered and given our hearts and so much love in this town for. All of us give. And you guys have now divided us. And this is the saddest day. And I've lived here 14 years, and this is the saddest day I've ever had in this town. Congratulations, guys.
This was not a good thing. This was a very, very bad thing. She even went on to say to the new council members that, we knew you were going to do this, but we thought you'd wait a meeting or two at least. We never thought you'd walk in on night one and do this. She's speaking for many people. She's speaking for how I felt about it and for how so many people felt about it. Matter of fact, she refers to it once as a build back a better Celina. Big reference there. So as time goes on, there's discussion back and forth. The mayor is clearly very much against this. And eventually it comes time to take action. So Andy and Mindy, they make a motion. They second the motion to kill this right there on the spot. And of course, there's 3 city council members. Remember, Wendie has left the meeting at this point. So there's 3 city council members left. That makes a majority. So newly elected Tony Griggs, newly elected Philip Ferguson, and Jay Pierce vote against this motion to kill this deal right here.
How do you want to do this? You want to wipe them clean?
A second.
We have a motion and second. All in favor, raise your right hand. All right. What motion? The motion fails.
It should have died right there. It should have been done. This should have never happened. But it moved on. And then Tony Griggs makes a motion to approve this item. And you know how the vote went. Once again, 2 against it. That would be Andy. That would be Mindy. And 3 in favor. So it passed.
I've got a lot of citizens that are concerned, and a lot of people that do business in this city that are concerned that this is a radical move. You don't ever see this happen in another city. The new citizens, we had it last year, Tony, with 42 people signed up, 10 got brought to us. So we've got people that when they term out, those positions come open. So technically you're going to go in and have 6 or 7 new P&Z members that have no clue about what development, what's going on in our city. All of our board members may say, you know what, we're not even going to sign up. We're off these boards and not even have a quorum to run a city. Do you know what that would mean?
I believe there's a number of people that are going to apply for these positions.
So you've been on council for 3 hours and you believe there's a number of people that's going to do that?
I've talked to a lot of people
that are qualified
down here.
What's a good qualification for a P&Z member? What do you think?
That's not what I'm discussing now, but I'm ready.
That's what we're discussing right now.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Hold on a second. That's what we're discussing right now.
Yeah.
I'm asking your opinion. What makes a good P&Z member? If you're going to make a motion to get rid of everybody on the boards, what makes a good P&Z member?
I think that selection committee will make a list of qualifications that they're looking for, and it'll be up to that committee to decide who's most qualified.
Well, make your motion then.
This is item D, correct?
Yes.
I make a motion that we approve item D.
Have a motion. Do I have a second? A second. All in favor, raise your right hand.
And that's what created what has become known as the Tuesday Night Massacre. Now we need to do something. We need to get into understanding a little bit about why this is so bad. Because people like Wendie would have you believe that, hey, first of all, this was a big deal on the campaign trail and everybody wanted this. Except there's no evidence to support that whatsoever out there. It was never a big part of that. So you can go back now and say, oh, they heard, but that's a bunch of that he said, she said stuff. I say that if it was a big deal, how come it's not in the campaign materials? How come it is not in the videos? How come it is not on the Facebook pages? How come it is not out there for us to see it? It's because it didn't happen that way. And now let me explain to you why this is such a big deal. And I'm going to have to get a little personal here so that you can kind of understand a little bit about this. And I'm probably going to get in a lot of trouble with my wife for putting this out there. But facts are facts. Me and my wife have invested in this city tremendously. We have worked very, very hard for many, many years to accomplish everything that we've accomplished. I got here to Celina in 1993 as a police officer. It was my very, very first job in law enforcement. And I've loved Celina ever since then. I was willing back in 93, 94, 95, 96 to lay down my life for the citizens of this city if I needed to. That's 30 years ago now. A lot has happened in those 30 years, and me and my wife have become fortunate enough to be able to bring a lot of investment to this city. Before we invested in this city, first of all, we made sure that the vision for this city was in line with what we wanted, because we could have taken our money and invested anywhere else. Frisco's an amazing city, and they're taking people like us who want to open restaurants and businesses and offices and bed and breakfast and wedding venues and all of those sorts of things, and they're welcoming them. Frisco's a fantastic place to go. Prosper would have welcomed all of the different business things that we have on the table right now in Celina, Texas. They would have welcomed that. But we love Celina, and we came here. We knew that the city manager, the EDC, the Economic Development Corporation, the mayor, and as far as we knew, the city council, everyone had the same vision here. They want to make this an amazing city. They love the idea of these fantastic restaurants that we want to do. They love the idea of investing into this downtown area. They're all on board for that. So as we speak right now, I'm literally sitting in one of our properties that will, in about a year, if everything works out right, and what I'm talking about is if the vision of the city doesn't change all of a sudden, it's going to be an amazing restaurant. It's going to be a very, very similar to what you see in McKinney called The Yard. We're just off the square right here. We have amazing plans. We've got amazing renderings. I'd be happy to show anybody what this is going to look like. It's going to be incredible. The decor is top notch. The food, the experience, the live music, the outdoor seating, every single bit of it is incredible. So it's not small investments. We're not talking about a $10,000 or $50,000 investment. And just for the record, The mayor, none of the city council, none of the EDC, none of them are involved. We're not business partners with anyone else besides ourselves. We invested here because of the vision that we came here and saw that was shared by everyone in leadership at that time. So you can see how coming in and flipping all of the boards and commissions could change that vision immediately. There's nothing to say that now when you have brand new members on the Economic Development Corporation, on the EDC, that they're going to share that same vision. Maybe they don't want the same things that the prior EDC board wanted. Maybe they don't see the need for these fun outdoor restaurants with live music and stuff like that. Maybe that's not what they want. Maybe planning and zoning doesn't think that that's what we need right here off the square. Things like that can completely change everything. So as it stands right now, we have 2 restaurants planned. We've got a bed and breakfast. We've got a wedding venue and an office building. But when you have boards and commissions and city council people who are willing to come in and play with the vision and the direction of the city like that, we're not doing it. We're not going to continue to put millions of dollars into these projects because we don't know what's going to happen next. If you're willing to come in and flip all these boards and commissions like that, what else are you willing to do? I'll tell you one thing that has happened since then. After the boards and commissions were flipped, another thing that Wendie Wigginton and Philip Ferguson did was they decided, they were in agreement to put the city manager, Jason Laumer, on the agenda for a city council vote on termination for him. Now, once again, that's been dressed up again too. The way that it's spun now is that, it was just going to be a discussion. But when I sat down with Wendie, I said, it's very clear that it was for determination, that it was for termination. And she agreed with me. She's like, you're right. She didn't mess around. She was very, very clear with me that her intent was to have him terminated. She said she did not believe that he was of the caliber to be able to lead us into the future and to be able to sit down, negotiate, and do the things that he needs to do in the next few years. That he's been great for up until now, but that moving forward, she didn't feel like he had the experience necessary to lead us into the future. Now, I find that very rich and ironic, seeing that she is wholeheartedly supporting Ryan Tubbs for mayor now. This is a man who only has months of experience on one advisory board, and she supports him to become mayor. Essentially no real experience whatsoever. So which is it? We want to fire Jason Laumer, the city manager, because he doesn't have experience, but we want to go ahead and lift Ryan Tubbs into the mayor's position with no experience. Something doesn't match there. And it screams to me of vendetta and of personal agenda. Yeah, you can decide that for yourself. But the optics on that whole thing, and this is exactly what I sat down with her and told her, the optics on it are horrible. If you believe that for some reason the board members, the commission members that we have in the city are not the right ones, they have terms. Those terms will come up. New people will come up and apply for those positions, and you can replace them. That's the way it's meant to be. It's just like city council. I do not agree that Wendie Wigginton is good for the city. I don't think her leadership is right. I don't think her decision making is right. I don't believe that any of that stuff is correct. And guess what? There's a time that comes up when it's re-election time. We're not re-election time. And you wait until then. We don't walk in and fire every member of the city council and kick the mayor out and start from scratch. That's not okay. It's not the way it's supposed to be. It's not right. But that's what we did. That's what we did on Tuesday, June the 14th, 2022. The Tuesday Night Massacre. We came in after Jay Pierce and Wendie Wigginton got together with 2 city council members who had not yet been sworn in, made a plan to come in and terminate every board and commission. And then after that happened, they'll say, oh, we turned out okay. Wendie is fond of saying that even the mayor supports what she did now. I've talked to the mayor. The mayor does not support what she did. He says that I didn't agree with it. Clearly he didn't. It's all over videotape that he didn't agree with that action. But that we turned out okay after all. Okay? In other words, we got lucky. We got lucky because it could have turned out very differently. It could have turned out incredibly differently. We could be sitting here right now with a full bunch of boards and commissions of people who are critically inexperienced and set this city back by years and years and years. And just because it didn't happen, the fact that it was gambled with, the fact that it was put on the agenda and that there was this collusion and all of this stuff, the fact that any of that stuff happened in the first place should tell you about the judgment and the leadership of those people. It's not good. It's not okay to gamble like that. It takes people like me who want to invest in this city to provide amazing places, restaurants, bed and breakfast, a wedding venue, offices, things like that for all of us. I'm not going to get rich off of those things. It's going to take many, many, many years just to get the return on those investments. These are not things that we're going to do. And oh, guess what? We're going to be rolling in the money tomorrow. They're not. They're big, giant, risky propositions in the sense that they're a lot of money. And we really, really, really hope that you love our restaurant. But if not, guess what? Me and my wife are the ones who lose. When you go out there and gamble with the vision of this city, changing things like boards and commissions in one fell swoop, you're not gambling with just me and my wife. You're gambling with the entire city. You're gambling with the vision, with the direction, with everything to do with the city as a whole. It's not okay. It's very, very, very bad leadership. Like I said, it's horrid leadership. It makes us look terrible in the eyes of surrounding communities, and it certainly could have gone really bad. As a matter of fact, Wendie, in a video that she released addressing some of this stuff, because she knew this would be a big deal during this election, it hasn't been, because only people like you watching this right now would even know about it. She's not going to go out there and tell everybody, hey, guess what? I was instrumental in terminating every board and every commission member with the exception of Board of Adjustments. And hey, I gambled with the vision and future of this city. And I just want y'all to know that. She's not going to come out and say that. And a lot of people are going to discount this just because they're going to say, well, you don't like Wendie. Well, no. Back up. I actually was supportive of Wendie because in the past she said, hey, I don't want us to have a good old boy system in any of this stuff with these boards and commissions. And I think we need to scrutinize and make sure that anytime somebody is replaced on a board or commission, that it's done properly and that we don't have a good old boy system. And when I heard that, I loved that because nobody wants a good old boy system. But you know what? I don't want more. I don't want you playing with the future and the vision of this city. I don't want you coming in and terminating everybody in one fell swoop on the first night that 2 brand new city council members are just sworn in. Name tags just getting traded out on their little placards up on the desk up there. It's not okay. I don't want you deciding at the 5th hour, just before the, days before the deadline, to go and put the city manager up for termination. And let me just address that a little bit too. We had just months prior to Wendie and Philip putting Jason Lawmer, the city manager, on the agenda for termination. We had just not only renewed, but extended the city manager's contract months before this. So Jason's contract comes up. His term is up as city manager. It's a contract thing. Everyone meets, they vote, and guess what? We renew and extend additional time beyond customary the term for the city manager. because he'd been doing a great job. Then we have these elections. Then we have new city council members. And Philip Ferguson and Wendie Wigginton go and put Jason Lahmer on the agenda for termination. Not okay. Not good. Not acceptable. Not the kind of leadership that we need in this city. Let me just say something in Philip's defense. He did change his mind. And the reason that the Jason Lahmer termination thing being put on the agenda and getting voted on, the reason that failed is because Philip Ferguson changed his mind. He actually listened to so many people speaking. There were going to be hundreds of people showing up at the council meeting demanding that Jason Lahmer not be terminated. And in the last minute, it was pulled from the agenda and it didn't happen. Thankfully, thank you, Philip Ferguson, for that. Here's what's interesting, and a follow-up to that is very recently, you may have noticed that we had this report that was done by independent third party who came in and basically assessed the workplace environment for the city of Celina, all the city employees. And guess what? A couple of key things came out of that. First of all, the city's employees love working here. The results were fantastic, and that reflects very directly on Jason Lahmer, the city manager. Had they all been very unhappy, it would reflect on him very poorly, and he would be to blame for that. But it was quite the opposite. The city employees here are very, very, very happy. They had a few recommendations on some changes they'd like to see, but it just gave glowing reviews to their experience working for the state of Celina, which reflects very directly on Jason Lahmer.
All very healthy, very favorable looking scores here. The vision, and these are some of the sky, I mean, you're in the stratosphere on the kind of scores compared to what we see in most municipalities. So people feel like they've got a shared vision when they cast eyes on the horizon. They understand what they need to do to bring that vision to fruition, that the organization's got a long-term purpose and direction. And the last question, which I think is probably the most important, have senior leaders painted not just a clear but a compelling vision, an inspiring vision for the organization. 85% say that's the case. 35 points above the 50% score, because most municipalities just they struggle with this.
Any questions from council? Looks good. Thank you for doing that. I think we're on the right track. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So had Wendie and Philip had their way, Jason Lahmer would have been terminated because remember the majority on the council. So he'd be gone. And right now when that report just came out, Jason Lahmer wouldn't even be around to hear what a great job he had been doing. He would have been terminated, and we'd be looking for a new city manager. Now, there's a time and a place. If you believe your city manager isn't doing his job, there is a time when his contract comes up, and that's the time to go in there and make adjustments, vote him out, do whatever it is. Don't renew his contract. And that had passed several months before. And the city council had renewed his contract and extended it. And then we did this report. And it turns out he's doing an amazing job. So we have these people on city council. And I specifically put all of this at the feet of Wendie Wigginton in large part, and in smaller part to Jay Pierce, because I feel like Jay tends to kind of follow Wendie's lead. I do not believe that Jay Pierce would do all of these things if Wendie wasn't sitting there kind of leading these causes in these things like this. The way this could have worked out is we would have flipped all the boards and commissions, and maybe they turn out, maybe they don't. We would have had if it was up to Wendie, all the boards flipped. We did. We wouldn't have Jason Lahmer as a city manager right now. And all of this just is a big, big, big example of messing with the city, the vision, the direction, and it's gambling with things. Now, if things turn out well, hey, it's a real feather in your cap. You can say, look what I did I flipped all the boards and commissions, and look how great that was. That's never been done before. That was so innovative. You could say, oh, we fired our city manager. I didn't think he was doing a great job, so I got him fired. Another feather in your cap. But that's not what this is about. This is supposed to be about true leadership, about putting the citizens first, and about taking care of us as citizens, people who live here, people who work here, people who invest here, people who do all of their life here. So I don't think that any of this stuff was okay. I don't agree with any of it. Clearly, I think this was a very, very bad idea, terminating all the boards and commissions. Clearly, I think it was a terrible idea going after Jason Lawmer and trying to get him terminated. And this is the reason that most people don't ever know about this. We're all like involved in our lives, moving along, doing our thing, and not really paying attention to what we just think everything happens and everything works out and everything's fine. Somebody's got to stand out here and say, hey, look at this. These things are going on. And I care very much about this city. I have cared about this city for 30 years. I'm not a newbie to the city. I've seen many, many, many good and bad city councils come and go. I've seen great mayors. I've seen terrible mayors. I've seen great police chiefs and bad ones. And we're at a point right now where we have the most opportunity in this city to become something absolutely incredible. But we can't be doing stuff like terminating all the boards and commissions and colluding with brand new elected city council members to come in on night one and take action like this and really gamble with the vision and the future of the city. We can't be putting the city manager on the agenda for termination months after approving a renewal and extension of his contract. And it certainly looks terrible when a third-party report comes out and says, city manager is doing awesome. Employees are very happy. So I'm going to leave it at that. But let's just suffice it to say, the Tuesday Night Massacre never should have happened. And I'm fearful for what may happen in the future because there seem to be no limits to what Wendie Wigginton, Jay Pierce, and to a lesser extent, Tony Griggs and Ferguson are capable of doing when they have the majority on the Celina City Council. So guys, that's going to wrap up this episode of CelinaRadio.com. Let me just say this before I leave. Nothing that I've talked about, nothing that I've said so far is personal. This is 100% to do with policies, politics, and the kind of leadership and judgment that I think is required in order to run this city. So I put this out there because it's something that comes up all the time. Everybody's like, what is the Tuesday Night Massacre? Well, now you know. So guys, as usual, stay safe and God bless.